This Fulham season preview edition of the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by our Patreon. Score exclusive perks and content available only to our patrons at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Welcome, everybody, to the Premier League Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne. We are here carrying on our pre-season preview series. All 20 teams we are giving the rundown to, and this episode is dedicated to Fulham. So we will have a look at how we think Fulham are going to go this season. We'll give you the odds for good things to happen to them. We'll give you the odds for bad things to happen to them. We'll tell you why we might think. We'll make some picks, and then we'll have a little look at FPL later on, give you some possible fantasy players to follow as well. Joining us from Mrs. Penaluna's conservatory is Barry Penaluna. Hello, Baz. How are you doing?
Even, Malcolm. Yeah, not bad at all.
Good. How's that cold treating you, Baz?
I'm good. I'm in good shape. I'm still got remnants of it, but my head's clear. I feel fresh. I feel able to, take on everything now. So I'm raring to go.
You look incredible. Are you a big talcum powder user, Baz?
No, I've never used talcum powder since I was about 10-year-old, maybe.
10-year-old? What did you do with it then?
I don't know what I was doing with it then. Probably younger, I would imagine. I probably used it when my mother was fucking wiping me arse at fucking year old or something. No, I don't think we actually have talcum powder in our house. I don't know why you would. Anyway, you?
Well, yes, the thing, Baz, I've got a right clammy undercarriage for being about the last month or so. Just and I mean like the top of my thighs, really. I don't know if it's possibly because I'm getting a little bit fat. And it's just hot. And I sit in the van and that. But just a bit of chaffing, like, do you know, we used to mention chaffing all the time when we had the Manscaped adverts. So I've been trying all sorts. I've had the Vaseline on, Baz. I've had the aqueous cream. I've had the whatever. I've been in all the kids' bedrooms and got all the creams out that are left from when they were little. And I've been lashing that on. No, and then about 2 weeks ago, Baz, I started with the talcum powder. And it's revolutionary. I don't know why it was in the house to start with. I said to the IT department, is there any talcum powder in the house? Oh, sorry, I didn't. I said, get me some talcum powder. See what there's some upstairs. And yeah, sure enough. Bob did come downstairs and report that there was some weird powder on the bathroom floor. He thought there'd been drugs or something. He watches a lot of like LAPD stuff. So he thought there was some sort of nefarious activity going on in the bathroom. But it wasn't. It was just me putting talcum powder on my knackers. So there you go. It's a solid start. If there's any Fulham fans listening, and they've just joined us for this episode, welcome along. We're going to talk about Fulham, not just talcum powder. Find us wherever you found us, but also Spotify, Apple, Twitter at SGPN Premier, YouTube.com at Premier League Gambling Podcast, as well as these preview series. We put out a couple of weekly pick shows where we look around the Premier League. We'll make some bets. We'll talk about what's been going on. We'll talk about all sorts of rubbish you might have gathered already. We'll do some fantasy Premier League stuff as well. Champions League, EFL, international breaks, you name it. We'll cover it. So what we're going to do tonight is just have a look around how we think Fulham might go this season, look at some of the numbers, try and make some picks, and then look at some fantasy players to look at later on. Fulham, Baz, are one of these teams. We've been talking about teams that kind of either we really, really hate or we don't really, really hate, because there's no teams that were like, Now, Fulham inspire absolutely no feeling in me at all. I can't think of a reason to dislike them. I used to dislike them when they went on those Europa Cup runs because I was just jealous. That was all. I was thinking, why are they playing in Europa Cup finals and that when they're absolutely tin pot? Like, that annoyed us. But that was just me being a bit of twisted Newcastle fan. I was the same with Middlesbrough when they were doing it and stuff. But yeah, they come up here and beat us sometimes. Generally, we've gone down there and battered them a couple of times as well. But yeah, not much on Fulham. We went to Fulham once. Do you remember? Was it QPR? Was it Loftus Road?
It was at Loftus Road, yeah. I remember going to Fulham away and then losing.
We lost each other. We lost everyone, didn't we?
On the underground. I think there was 4 of us went down. We went to the match. I'm sure we got beat. Wasn't it Lee Clark who scored against us as well? Newcastle player scored, and I was fuming. You fucking... And then he come up at the end and applauded the Newcastle fan.
Well, they had a corner, Baz, and he was shitting himself because when they had a corner and he came, he's like leaning on the post, and everyone was chanting at him like scab, 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 and all that. And he was waving his hand. He was like, "No, it's not like that, lads. It's not." And then he scored in the beat with. Craig Bellamy definitely should have had a penalty. I seem to recall telling somebody's flatmate that at about 2 o'clock in the morning who wasn't interested. But then we all tried to go out on the beer, and for some reason, all 4 of us got on 4 separate trains, and we never saw each other for 8 hours.
The problem was a bottle of Glenfiddich before we went out. I remember getting through a lot of Glenfiddich, and then we all went out for a night out in that there London, and just got lost on the tube for hours and hours, and absolutely haven't. So it wasn't my finest away day experience.
No. QPR was, the ground itself was a bit grim, wasn't it? It was horrible to find. And I don't think I managed to get 2 drinks in after the game from 5 p.m. until 1 in the morning. I was just on the train trying to phone you. That's all I remember.
Carnage, absolute carnage.
Absolute carnage.
I don't mind Fulham. I've got a bit of this, I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Mitrovic. He was a
good point.
Popular player at Newcastle, and I've enjoyed seeing him do well. Certainly when they were in the Championship and he was scoring goals galore. Happy for him. I think he's a great character, very passionate. I mean, we'll come to him soon. Whether he's going to be there next season remains to be seen. I don't mind Fulham at all, really. And I do like Marco Silva. I think he's a great manager.
Yes, good manager.
They've got a good man in there, so yeah. Don't mind.
I'm going to need to make a note of what time of day it is, Baz, because the sun's going down. It's 9:10 in the evening, so it's a bit dusk outside. I've got my ring light on here, which I set to the pink setting, but I've suddenly turned like a Greek Mediterranean looking colour, which is not me at all. As you know, I'm pale blue, Baz. I'm like you. But in this dusk with the ring light on, I've got a bit Glenn Medeiros like. I have a little bit of jaundice, but that's not normally what I look like. Is Marco Silva staying?
It seems like Silva's staying, yeah. So he's turned down a move. I think it was Al Hilal or Al Ali. I'm not sure which one. One of the Saudi clubs offered him a big money move.
We could have to get better at that, Baz.
Yeah, I know. We should learn our Saudi football. It won't be long before we've got the Saudi Super League,
the Saudi Premier League podcast. Oh yeah, yes,
I'm sure it won't be far off. We're just waiting for the big sponsorship deal to come in for that one. Absolutely, I'll take the blood money if they want to.
Yeah, me too.
Us.
Just put that out there.
The Saudi Gambling podcast, no problem. But yeah, it sounds like Silva's turned them down, and that's a massive bonus for Fulham. Not quite the same story with Mitrovic, is it? They've turned down a bid from Saudi Arabia for Mitrovic, and it seems like Mitrovic is unhappy about that. He has returned to training. But the signs don't look good for him starting the season. He's adamant he wants to move, and he's not happy with them having turned down an offer. So it remains to be seen how that all unfolds over the next few weeks, really.
I think Baz, Fulham in action as we record in America against that Chelsea. Just again, part of the housekeeping here is that we're recording this on that Sunday night. It's Chelsea 2, Fulham 0. After 67 minutes. So if you wonder why we never mentioned that Fulham have signed Johan Cruyff tomorrow, because we don't know if Fulham signed Johan Cruyff. That's why that would happen. It is the Sunday night we're recording. We'll have a run through the numbers and see if we can predict how we think Fulham might go. I'll tell you first about the Patreon page for the network, the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Waging war on corporate gambling, loads of exclusive content. The Discord channel is just for our patrons. That's really good as well. There's lots of exclusive perks. And the monthly SGP Stories podcast, which is an ad-free, uncensored show highlighting the best stories from decades of being degens. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon is where you can find all of that. sportsgamblingpodcast.com/Patreon. Fulham finished 10th. Outstanding finish. They were really good. 52 points. Next season, the numbers are to win the league, 500-1, Top 4 is 100 to 1. Top 6, 33 to 1. Top half, 4 to 1. Bottom half, 1 to 7, minus 700. To get relegated is 100 to 30. And to finish stone cold last, they are 14 to 1. I mean, they had a good season with some good players and a good manager. It wasn't complicated. Mitrovic did really well. Penaluna was outstanding. Willian had a renaissance. They defended well. Not big names really at the back, but they played well. Not very many patterns. The home and away records were very, very similar. We've just finished recording a Wolves show where Wolves, everything happened at home. If you're going to back Wolves, it had to be at home. Not so with Fulham. Home and away records similar. They scored 55. They conceded 53. It was all very mid-table. Nothing stands out. There was never a point when they looked in trouble in the season. They were all spent all year sort of win one, lose one, draw one. That was just how they went, really. They were good at home. They scored over 1.5 goals, 58% of the time at home. And they scored over 2.5 goals in 16% of the home games as well. So if you wanted some fun and games with Fulham, the home is the place to do it. And then over 2.5 goals, 66% was yes. And really, when I looked at those numbers, that kind of fitted with how I instinctively would view Fulham's season. If you just asked me off the cuff, how did Fulham go? How you think they went is pretty much reflected in the numbers. The big problem is Mitrovic, obviously, because that really just leaves Vinicius up front. Vinicius was okay. We talked him up quite a bit last season. I think I took him. When Mitrovic was suspended, Vinicius scored some home goals and was quite a good price to do so. Remains to be seen whether he can translate that into the season. They've signed Raul Jimenez, but he looked broken, absolutely broken for me, for Wolves at the back end of last season. So maybe they could spend some more money. We'll have to see if they do get any money for Mitrovic. Baz, how will you be betting Fulham this season if you do?
Yeah, so I mean, as you say, a lot of it does depend on Mitrovic. I agree. Vinicius could do a job. He scored 5 and 11 starts for them towards the end of the season. They have made a couple of signings, haven't they? Calvin Bassey has arrived from Ajax, and as you say, Jimenez. There's plenty of other rumours around. They've been linked with Salisu from Southampton.
He's a good player.
Hudson.
He's a good player.
Yeah, and Hudson-Odoi from Chelsea, who was obviously hugely expensive signing for Chelsea many years ago, and now talking about him going to Fulham for like 5 or 6 million. Remains to be seen whether they can get a tune out of him, but that one looks like one that could definitely happen. I think it's been vitally important that they've kept Silva. They might lose Mitrovic, but had they have lost both, I think that would have been a massive blow, and I would have been far more concerned. I think Fulham will drop back a little bit this season. I don't see them getting back into the top half, but I also don't see them getting dragged into the relegation battle. I think, as I say, if Silva had gone, that would have been a big blow, and I would have had more fears for them, depending who came in. I've got them finishing around 14th. So I started looking at which teams I've got above them, who I think could possibly be worth a match. So my pick is actually a fade of Fulham in a head-to-head market against Burnley. I think Burnley can finish above Fulham at even money. Was a pick I like. So it's not a positive pick for Fulham. Although I do think Fulham.
You keep doing this to people. We get these Fulham fans to listen to this, and then you did the same with Wolves a minute ago. You couldn't throw that out for Burnley. Say, Burnley are going to finish above. If you've got them finishing 14th, they're going to finish above 6 teams. So why are you going that way, you misery?
Because if you look at the 6 teams I've got them to finish above, they're a sure price to finish above them. You're not getting a pick for them to finish above Sheffield United or Luton Town. So it is, it's a bit of an odd one, but I'm going for Fulham to finish below Burnley at even money is my pick.
Well, as it happens, Baz, I also have Fulham finishing 14th. However, I have got a nice plus price bet for Fulham fans here. So same as you, the bottom half price is no good. I don't think they get relegated, so I don't want the 100 to 30. I can't see them getting in the top half. So the 4-1 was no good there. So really, it was match betting. In which of these teams have I got them finishing above the price? And one of them is 15-8, Baz, a price of plus 187 is Fulham to finish higher than West Ham. Not really having West Ham there. West Ham Twitter over the last few days has been an absolute meltdown, really. They're just losing players. They obviously lost Rice, but they're just losing others and not picking up players at all. I can't work out what's going on with West Ham because up until sort of even April time, they were right in the shit. I mean, we went and beat them 5-1 at West Ham. They were right in the shit. Then all of a sudden, this cup win has kind of masked all of that. They got a couple of, but they didn't finish very well. And I don't know what's changed. They've got worse. They were rubbish and they've got worse. I know this isn't the West Ham show. We'll cover that at the time. I'm going to say that again on the West Ham show. But Fulham can definitely finish above them. 15-8 plus 187. I think it's a smashing bet, Bass.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I've got West Ham finishing above them, but I would say, you know, when I've made my initial pre-season predicted table, we've done this sort of 3 weeks before the season starts, and there might be a lot of things that change. I think you've already said, you know, you've had a few teams which you've shuffled a bit higher, others that you've shuffled a bit lower. West Ham, I've currently got sitting around 11th, but that could easily start to slip a little bit if they don't make the moves in the transfer market. They need to do something, but yeah, I have Fulham below West Ham at the moment, but it's a good plus money price. I don't mind that.
We'll have a look down the squad list in terms of fantasy players. Anything that takes our eye once I've told you about Underdog Fantasy with the NFL season right around the corner. Underdog Pick'em is a great way to get down on all of the NFL player prop markets. There's lots of opportunities to win in their daily MLB contests. And of course, if you enter Best Ball Mania 4, first place is $3 million. Head over to underdogfantasy.com. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. That's underdogfantasy.com, promo code SGPN. Fantasy League. We do have a listener league for you. We've got some prizes, £150 in cash. We've got some merch. We've got the Egg in a Cup, which money can't buy. So if you are a FPL player and you want a game, it's free. Come and join us. The only rules are get in before week 1. We're having no latecomers. And morally, go and do something nice for us. Give us a thumbs up, a 5 stars, something like that. A review, a subscribe, any of that shenanigans. The code is CVVQAB. That's Craven Vinicius, quarterback, alphabet, Belgium. Is that CVVQAB? Baz, you're the expert. Take us down this Fulham squad.
Yeah, so I mean, I looked at goal scores from last season. 15 goals for Mitrovic. Great total, really, when you consider he missed a huge portion of the end of the season there with his ban for shoving referees and going a little bit mental.
He missed also a huge amount of penalties, didn't he?
I can't remember how many he missed in total, but you're all right.
He double touched that one in our players. That was funny.
Yes.
He got away with absolute murder then.
I mean, it was a long way back then to players like Pereira, Willian, Vinicius, Solomon, I think, all scored 5 goals. There are options. I mean, if I was looking at Fantasy Premier League scores, Leno in goal scored 142. Pereira was 123. Pereira was hugely popular last season. He was in almost everyone's squad from the start and remained there throughout, purely down to his value. He came in at $4.5 million last year, which is the cheapest price for a midfielder. He was playing in attacking positions and getting lots of returns for $4.5 million. He was huge value. The problem was a lot of people brought him in at $4.5 million to sit on the bench, knowing that he was a good option if they needed him, but being able to sort of decide when to start him and when to not was the problem with him. They've pushed him up to $5.5 million this year, and it becomes a bit less appealing at that price because there are other players in that bracket who appeal a bit more. But he could find himself on penalties for the reason you said. Mitrovic being out, Pereira did take over on penalties last season, and the fact Mitrovic's record wasn't outstanding. So Pereira could end up on penalties, which would make him far more appealing. Willian picked up 117 points last year, and Mitrovic on 107. Again, that would have been far higher had he not have got himself a huge ban. I think for me, with Mitrovic being potentially leaving, Vinicius is the one I'll be watching. He's a £5 million striker, and it's a bargain basement price for someone who could see a lot more game time if Mitrovic goes. Similar to you, I'm not sold on Raul Jimenez. I don't see him coming in, setting the world on fire and taking over from Mitrovic if needed. So I think Vinicius might be worth looking at. £5 million, there's no gamble there. You put him in your squad, you put him on the bench, and if he starts scoring, you've got him and you play him. As I say, he started 11 games last season, scored 5 and assisted 2. So Vinicius stands out, £5 million. Obviously, Mitrovic, if he does end up staying, and it's a big if at the moment, he'd definitely come into play. $7.5 million, proper mid-priced striker. 15 goals last year for a team like Fulham is a great return, and could easily have been 20. So yeah, if Mitrovic stays, I'll be interested in him. He'd be in the same bracket as players like Ollie Watkins, Gabriel Jesus, but you'll get a similar goal tally from Mitrovic as you would from those sort of players. So yeah, Mitrovic or Vinicius for me.
Yeah, I'll start at the top. Leno was a good option last year. He's in the right price range. He's $4.5 million. I just think Fulham are going to be a little bit worse, and there's better options there. Pereira, absolutely, set pieces will chip in with goals and assists. Harry Wilson is the kind of player, he's having the kind of pre-season that I always used to fall for. I'll see a highlight, he kicked one really hard into the goal the other day, and I would immediately log on to my thing and put him in, and he's never ever going to do it again. And you get that, there's a lot of Fulham players who are going to do that. Bobby Reid's going to chip in, you say Willian. I've just noticed Kevin Mbabu, Baz, formerly of this parish, is in at £4 million. He's not a bad player. I played him in DFS a lot for Switzerland in the Euros. He gets forward like you're not going to cross. He's if he starts, if a $4 million starter, Kevin Mbabu will do some stuff if he's kicking around. And then yeah, you're right. It's all about Vinicius, whether or not he can play. But I think Fulham will be fine. They've got a very good manager. They're going to have an identity. They know what they're doing. There's going to be no surprises. They're established. They're a little bit like a sort of Forest or a team in a similar boat. So I think they're going to be fine. But say some of these middle of the table teams have been quite hard to sort of pick an exciting bet either way, or an exciting fantasy league player either way, because they're just right in that glove in the middle. And I'm sure Fulham fans would be quite happy for them to finish 13th, 12th, 11th, and maybe a cup run or two. I mean, that cup run last year, Baz, if they had not gone mental at Old Trafford, was that the quarter final?
Yeah, I think that was quarter final.
They were winning. And then
who did Man United play in the semi-final? Was that Man City? No,
they played Man City in the final, didn't they?
Can't remember.
They played Brighton on penalties after a 0-0 draw.
That's right. Yeah.
But Fulham were there. Fulham were outplaying them. They were in front. Man, you got the lucky penalty, a little bit unfortunate. And if Fulham had kept their heads, and then they did the exact opposite. And 3 minutes later, they were down to, was it 10 men, 9 men? The manager got sent off. Down to 10 men with the manager sent off and 2-1 down. But I mean, Fulham could easily put a run together.
They had some great chances at 1-0 up in that game as well, didn't they?
Absolutely.
It was ridiculous how quickly that game unravelled.
I think Fulham are always when Fulham are the biggest price they're going to be. It's kind of where I'd like to go and get them. They will win some games this year when they're 7 or 8-1. They will go to Man United and win. They'll go like where Man City lost his home to Brentford this year. That's the sort of thing Fulham will do. Fulham should have won up here, really. Even though I didn't think the penalty was a penalty, the kid, was it Bobby Reid kicked Trippier and they gave him the penalty. But then he slots that. And Newcastle were in trouble. Like all of a sudden, he double touches the penalty. We get a bit of momentum and score right at the end. Aleksander Isak header, I think, won it late doors. But Fulham would have been 6 or 7-1 to win that day. So they're always a decent a decent betting proposition. I think Fulham are the sort of team, if you bet them to level stakes all season, by the time they've won 14 league games or whatever, they'll have you in profit, like, I think. So, anything else, Baz, Fulham related before we crack on?
No, nothing more from me on Fulham, I'm afraid.
No, like I say, any Fulham fans who have listened to us, we throw this sort of rubbish out all the time. Weekly pick shows, a lot of Premier League stuff, analysis, chit-chat, talcum powder, Champions League, you name it. So yeah, come and say hello, follow us. We're out on YouTube. Yeah, and if you liked what you saw, give us a little subscribe and a review, etc. Thanks everyone for listening. Go and find the rest of our pre-season reviews wherever you found this one, and we'll see you down the road. Cheers.